We're going to keep talking about weather today. Yesterday we looked at pressure, and pressure is what causes wind, and wind is what helps push around our weather. We know that some parts of the world are hot and some parts are cooler. Some are wet, some are dry, like deserts. And these are big chunks of air that can move around. These are called air masses. I want to start with this one right in the middle. This is North America, United States, Canada, Mexico. And the air that comes out of Canada up north, do you think that would be cool or hot? Cool, good job. Okay, so I'm going to put the word cold there. Do you see any other circles that would be cold air? Well, it turns out all the ones at the top are cold. That makes sense because they're farther away from the equator. And these on the bottom are going to be the warm air. Now, the next thing we have to figure out, is it going to be wet or dry? And if it's over the land, it's usually dry. And if it comes from over the ocean, then it's going to be wet. So we see this one, because it's coming over Canada, the air is cold and dry. When you have cold, dry air, you usually have blue skies and no rain. Here's another one that's dry, coming out of the Southwest, out of Mexico. The air is warm from the equator, but there's no moisture, so it's dry. We get hot summer days, hot days where there's no rain for a week. That's air coming out of the south. Now, our wet air masses are the ones that come in from the oceans. And you see we have every combination. We have cold and wet, cold and dry, warm and wet, warm and dry. And it all has to do with geography, where it's coming from. Now there's something else way up in the sky, at the top of the troposphere, about 10 miles up, is a giant invisible wind that is pushing this air around. And we call it the jet stream. And the jet stream decides if the cold air stays in Canada or if it dips down, the cold air comes down into the United States. And that's why sometimes we get cold and sometimes we get hot. Here, the warm air comes up from the equator. And it's all this invisible line that's somewhere up there above us. Sometimes it's past us, sometimes it's that way. I showed you this yesterday. When we have low pressure, it spins counterclockwise. Spins around that way. When we have high pressure, it spins the other way. So these big pressure systems rotate against each other. Now, high pressure we don't see because there's no clouds. It's clear. But this is low pressure, spinning counterclockwise. And it always looks like a comma or an apostrophe. And it's spinning around, and this is where we get big storms. If you ever see on a radar a thin line of storms like this, that means they're very strong, they're organized, they're close together. And it's right out in front of these that you're going to get the worst wind, the hail, and maybe even things like tornadoes when these big storms roll through. This storm down here, excuse me, this storm is also low pressure, but it's not very organized. It's a mess. So the storms aren't going to be as big. When it looks like a comma, the storms are bigger. This is high pressure. How do I know that's high pressure? Because there's no clouds, there's no storms, no rain. high pressure, low pressure. Now, where these big air masses bump into each other, where they touch, we call that a front, like the front of the building, the front of a store. And here is a great picture showing you a front. See how it's kind of an angle? This side is dry because we don't have many clouds. And this side is wet. Look at that one. Fronts can be very steep, almost straight up and down. This side is warm, and this side is cold. Cold air can't hold as much water, so all the rain comes out. Warm air, cold air. And right in the middle is one of those sharp storms, like the comma shape. Warm, cold. So we call that a cold front because the warm air is going away. It's going up. Warm air likes to rise. And the cold air comes in very fast. These storms pop up and they come through quick. That's the good part. They don't storm for hours and hours usually. And notice the clouds build very fast and very tall. So they're called cumulonimbus. And they bring thunderstorms. You can see warm on this side, cold rain, and sometimes even snow on the other side of a cold front. We show a cold front with a blue line with triangles. The triangles show which way it's moving. This storm is moving to the right, just like this. Now, we can also have a warm front where the cold air gets pushed out of the way by the warm air. But cold air is heavy. It doesn't want to move. The warm air comes in and says, hey, can I get in there? And the cold air says, no, I'm staying. And the warm air says, hey, you gonna let me in? And the cold air says, no. It takes a while. Finally, the cold air says, okay, and it gets pushed out of the way. It's very slow to push that cold air off. And what happens is you get a few clouds the first day, and then the next day you get more clouds, and then more clouds, and then it rains. And it can rain for days because it's slow. A warm front brings lots of rain, but not usually thunderstorms. No lightning, no thunder, just lots of rain. That's what I want you to know. Cold front, storm. Warm front, just rain. Cold front, fast. Warm front, slow. Now, if you go to the internet and you look up the weather map for the day, there's a lot that we've learned about on here. We can see a big comma-shaped storm. This was yesterday. And we know that we had some rain come through yesterday. And it actually came from the south and went north. This whole storm was spinning counterclockwise. So this rain right here came up through Indiana and went right past us. It wasn't a thunderstorm, really. It's mostly rain. You see that we have lots of high pressure out here. That's what we're going to see today. This whole storm moved off to the side and the high pressure moved in, and we're going to have a very nice day outside today. But look at this. This is a big cold front that's moving toward us, and that's going to probably come in tomorrow. So we'll have more rain tomorrow or Sunday. We can see all that on the map. Remember, these lines show us the wind. If the lines are close together, we have a lot of wind. The lines are far apart, we have very little wind. So you can look at a map and know if it's going to be hot or cold, rain or dry, strong wind, or no wind, just by looking at a map like this. We're getting pretty good at actually understanding the weather, especially because of computers. They help us make these maps. We call all of that forecast. Have you heard that word before? A weather forecast. We want to know what the weather's going to be tomorrow. That's the forecast. All right, that's all for this week, Zoom. You guys have a good weekend. I'll see you on Zoom on Tuesday. Bye-bye.